So this morning when Dorian asked me what my topic was and I said first down and 10 yards to go, she said, well, you're going to have to explain that to people. And I get that. You know, everybody's not knowledgeable about football. So a football field, American football, has 100 yards long, and it's divided into 5-yard increments and then subdivided into 1-yard increments. And when a team gets the ball, they're going to try to go into the end zone to score a touchdown. Right? Well, every time you get the ball, you have 4 downs to go 10 yards. If you make it at least 10 yards, you get a whole new set of downs. So usually the team will work their way down the field, maybe 10, 12 yards at a time. You know, maybe if you make 3.4 yards per play, because if you don't make a first down on 3rd down, you usually have to punt the ball away on 4th down. Because if you don't make the 10 yards, the other team gets the ball right there. Okay, so this is all a hunter-gatherer ritual. Hope you understand that. Where the men come out and they have a pig. Okay, the ball is made of pigskin even today. Okay, and they try to take the pig into the goal to win the fertile female who is the cheerleader. It really is that. None of you been in high school? But what we're looking at today is 1st and 10 as a place of new opportunity. When you make that first down, you've got a whole new set of downs. So the pressure's off in terms of needing to get it, like you're at 3rd down, a long way to go, a lot of pressure on that play. First down play, if you don't do so well, you got a couple more downs. Okay? So a first down equals a fresh start, and that is these guys that wear these striped shirts are called referees or umpires, and that's first down. You would stand like that. Okay, so getting all your football lore in today. And the people in Europe, pardon me for calling this football, but that's what we call it here. Mary Pickford, you know, I get quotes from everywhere, said, "You may have a fresh start any moment you choose, for this thing that we call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down." You know, the idea that there's always the opportunity to go forward. And we talk a lot about in our teaching about that there is really nothing against you. You know, and it's usually a hard concept for a lot of folks to get because we're kind of conditioned about failure, and if you don't succeed, there's something wrong with you, or you know, you're less than, or something like this. You know, in football, for example, very competitive. You know, there's 30-some teams, and at the end of the year, only one goes away happy. The other 29 or 31 or whatever there are losers. You see? Well, we've built that competitive culture, and now it's interesting, that competitive culture is being questioned in a lot of ways as we evolve culturally. The whole idea of the whole thing with head injuries in football, you know, is something really to look at. And but the sign that we're even looking at it is a sign that the culture is progressing. You know, so it's not the falling down. Falling down can be the best thing that ever happened to you. You know, everybody in here has probably had a setback in life that was so significant at the time you thought you'd never recover from it. And yet here you are. Some of you may be going through that right now. You know, yet here you are. We do go forward. We have the capacity to move forward. But we have to know that. We have to get up and go forward. And then the idea is, what have I learned from my falling down? So that I don't have to make that mistake again. And a mistake is not anything wrong, really. It's simply something that you didn't get what you aimed for. So get up, readjust your aim, and go forward. And when we do that, our lives tend to work. And they may not end up where we thought they were going to end up, by the way. I think it was John Lennon that said, "God laughs at our plans." You know, and the way he said that was, life's what happens while you're making other plans. But the idea is that life happens. It goes forward. Everything is moving forward. And when you fall down, things continue to move forward. And when you get up from where you've fallen down, you're not in the same place you were when you fell. There's always a greater possibility there. The idea of the egg opening up and bringing new life, you know, the light within you that wants to express, can't express until that shell breaks. And that shell breaking is a very traumatic event, you know. I saw a thing on the internet. It was saying that if you take an egg and you put enough pressure on it from the outside to break the egg, you kill what's inside. But if you put the pressure from the inside of the egg, something is born. Same amount of pressure. But see, the thing inside determines when it's going to be born. Now, you probably don't remember a lot of being in your mother's womb. I have just fleeting memories of it. But you decided when to be born. The child lets the mother know when he or she is ready to emerge. The intelligence within is what is always driving all of life. The intelligence in the seed. For the seed to germinate, the seed pod has to break. For the plant to come out of the ground, the earth has to be broken. So all growth has to do with breaking things up. And breaking things up is a painful process. It's difficult. Sometimes you have to rearrange all your relationships to move forward in your life. You have to establish boundaries or reestablish boundaries, or you have to tell people that I just can't be with you if you're going to be this way anymore. And that's not an easy thing to do, even though it's a necessary step sometimes in moving forward. Having those difficult conversations. It could be at work, it could be in your own personal relationships, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes when we avoid those conversations, we stay down. We don't get back up. John Cage said, I can't understand why people are frightened of new ideas. I'm frightened of the old ones. And this is another thing about moving forward, is moving forward involves new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of being. And sometimes we may want to move forward in an area of our life, but we start to realize, hey, if I change this, then all this stuff over here that I really like is going to have to change too. I remember one time, some years ago, I was feeling a little stuck and not, in the sense of not being able to fully express in what I was doing as in ministry. And I did this technique that I kind of developed. It's in my book. It's called the dynamic change technique, where you visualize without an image. You just use the emotion. So I don't know what I want my life to be like, but I know what I want it to feel like. And I just imagine it feeling that way for like 20 minutes at a time over a course of a couple of days, couple of weeks. And what can happen with that is the universe that, see, when I visualize, when I add the image, I limit what I'll accept. Which is usually, you know what you want, right? You know what you want. But when you just do the emotion, the universe is free to coalesce around that energy field of that emotion any way it sees fit. An unlimited way. But what happened to me is I moved 1,000 miles. Because what showed up that was clearly right required that I move. And I didn't think I was going to have to move. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I kind of like it here. You know, I like this aspect, I like that aspect. But if I recognized if I'm going to go where I need to go in terms of my own growth and development, it required breaking up a few eggs. Joseph Campbell says if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. So sometimes in life we will turn away from that new opportunity because, well, I didn't want this to be affected. You know. And sometimes that's I didn't want to disappoint someone. Or I didn't want to give up financial stability. Or I didn't want to leave this place that I love. Or it could be I didn't want to stay in this place that I really don't like. because you could become clear that you're in the right place, you're just not doing it right. And that can be as disconcerting as moving forward. But you're at that 1st and 10, though, all the time, because you always have a few more downs to play. In other words, if on the first pass or the first run play you don't make any yardage, you still got the ball. You can still move forward. You can still achieve your goal. Some of us are so afraid to make a mistake. We're so afraid to do anything that might be wrong that we become inhibited and closed in and boxed in, and we won't reach out. Because we're motivated not by what can be, but by what we don't want to be. And when you're motivated by what you don't want to be, you become restricted. And also, it's not a lot of fun. It's hard to have fun when you're trying not to have something happen. Right? Well, I don't want anything to happen, so I'm not getting on that roller coaster. I'll sit here and watch you all. Oh, it looked like it was terrible, you know. Did you ever see the thing on Funniest Home Videos? They have one of these rides. I think it's one of these things where they shoot you all up in the air and everything, and there'll be 2 people on the ride. And one's like, yay! And the one beside him is going, oh, no, get me off of this thing, right? Well, the one who's going, oh, no, get me off of this thing, that's the brave person there. They're the ones who were willing to be uncomfortable. Yeah. That's the one I have respect for. They're terrified. And they went there voluntarily. That's called an adventure. Really. Adventure, when you say I'm going on an adventure, you're saying I'm going to be terrified voluntarily. And guess what? When you do that, you have a life. You have adventures. You have great stories to tell. And you have great experiences in the midst of it. But when we're saying, well, I don't want to go there because something bad might happen. You know. We had a neighbor when I lived in Fort Lauderdale who was kind of a zealously protective mom. Hi. Was kind of a zealously protective mom. And we lived in kind of a small town within Fort Lauderdale. It was kind of a little beach town. It was sort of in its own little community. And they had an incident. The only place to go was to the beach or to the shopping center where they had a shop, you know, a grocery store and some coffee shops and stuff like that. And the kids would go hang around. And there was an incident in the parking lot of the shopping center where somebody threw acid in somebody's face. It was a landlord-tenant dispute. And the woman said, my kids are not going to that shopping center anymore because I don't want anything to happen to them. Now, you could say, well, yeah, but let's see, there's been one incident in 75 years. Yeah, that's a rational way to respond. You know, in some ways. You know, I mean, really, is there anywhere you can go where nothing will happen? And if you could, why would you go there? If nothing's going to happen, I'll stay here. You know? But, you know, it sounds like, oh, that makes sense. But does it? What are you teaching your kids? You know, it wasn't like there was a spate of incidences. There was one incident that was clearly a personal thing between 2 people. You know, you look at it. But, oh, no, they can't. She was continually lobbying the city for more speed bumps. I said, if we get any more speed bumps, we might as well just take the roads out. Because we go boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. You know, I said that to her. Why don't we just take the roads out? Then nobody will get hit by a car. She goes, well, that would be silly. I said, pardon me. So sometimes we need a fresh start. We need to move forward enough that we can kind of step up and say, okay, I'm ready for what's next. And are you ready for what's next or not? And the other question would be, are you seeking what's next or not? Because what's next is seeking you. You know, that's the way it works. Nobody's standing still in this universe. Nothing is not moving. So you might think you're taking a breather, and you can be taking a breather, but you're still in motion, and everything that's going to be coming into your sphere of influence is also in motion. Ready or not, here comes the future. And you can be ready or not. It's up to you. It's kind of interesting. We don't think of it that way very often. You know, we say, well, I don't want anything bad to happen. Okay, but bad things are going to happen. Have you noticed? They do. That term happens, yeah. All the time. All the time. Can I avoid bad things happening by not doing anything myself? I don't know. I think you can avoid having an enjoyable life. You certainly can avoid having adventures. You know. Every now I'll meet somebody, I'll say, you know, yeah, Dorian and I, we just got back from Calgary last week, had a great time. Oh, I would never go to Canada. You know, if you get sick up there, you have to wait 6 months to get treatment. Or they'll say, oh, I don't like to fly. You know, planes crash. I don't want to be on a plane when it crashes. I say, well, neither do I. But and you know, and so here's when we have those fears, whether they're realistic or not, they're real. And explaining logically doesn't work. Have you noticed that? Have you now? I know you've tried to be logical with someone who was illogical. Don't think about that. Think about when someone's tried to be logical with you when you're being illogical. Oh, I've never been illogical. Bull crap. Okay, I know you. You've been illogical. You're probably being illogical right now in many ways. And someone says to you, well, no, here's what, and they say, oh, yeah, but I don't care. I'm still scared of it. See, me telling that mom, well, that was an isolated incident and all that, you know, and I had a little authority. I'd been a cop for 24 years. I could, you know, kind of say how it fit into the bigger scheme of things. Oh, no, my kids are not going to that shopping center. They were 12 and 14, her kids. They still live at home. They're in their 30s. That's an adventure. So the story is, if you try to avoid adventures, you're going to get them anyway. You might as well pick your own. That's the only difference is, are you choosing your life, or are you choosing your life by not choosing? Either way, it's your choice. If I say, you know, I'm just going to try to hunker down so nothing happens, some stuff is still going to happen. It's just not going to be the stuff you want, for the most part. First and 10 mean, if I'm the quarterback at first and 10, and the quarterback is the person that gets behind and throws the ball, if you don't know that. The captain, kind of the person in charge of the team, going forward, the offensive team that's trying to score with the ball, and the defense is trying to stop them from scoring. But if the quarterback knows at first and 10, the quarterback's got to make decisions, got to be decisive, got to move forward. Progress is forward. Going backward doesn't work. It's very clear in a game like that. But it's also very true in life. And it's not that our lives are competitive necessarily, because there isn't a defensive team out there trying to stop you. Although sometimes we act like there is. But there really isn't. There isn't a team out there trying to stop you. There are just other people trying to get ahead. And if we recognize that, maybe we could be more cooperative and collaborative and less competitive. You know. One of my favorite metaphysicians, John Wayne. This is a John Wayne quote, not from a role in a movie. This is a John Wayne quote. Tomorrow is the most important thing in life. Comes into us at midnight very clean. It's perfect when it arrives and it puts itself in our hands. It hopes we've learned something from yesterday. Yeah. The Duke, who knew? You know? But that's true about tomorrow. Tomorrow is the choices you're making now preparing to unfold. Tomorrow doesn't happen to you. It's given to you. We have to come to understand that. That's so critical. The power is within me, not outside. The world is not against me. The world is for me. but I can mistakenly think it's against me, and then it seems to be, and all the logic in the world won't help. I have to have a change of heart. A change of heart is where you recognize something not from the consciousness level, not from the intellectual level so much, although that can help. I recognize it at my wisdom level. And you know what? When you find out something in your life hasn't been true, sometimes you don't want to let it go even though you realize it isn't true. You know, the alcoholic usually figures out drinking isn't good for them way before they get to the 12-step program. And yet they keep drinking. And there's a reason we do that. You know, there's a reason we do self-destructive behaviors, because we've got the wrong idea about ourselves and the world. We think the world is against us. We think we have to try to cope against a force bigger than we are, when in reality, we are the force within us making our way through a cooperative universe. The universe cooperates with whatever you come to accept about yourself. It looks true. If that's the case, even if we're making it up, we ought to make up better stuff. If it's an illusion, as some say in the East, why not opt for a better illusion? How about an illusion that works? How about an illusion that says I am enough? How about an illusion that says I'm smart enough, I'm tall enough, I'm sexy enough, I'm good looking enough, I'm musically inclined enough? Rather than one that says, what's wrong with me? And then goes on to tell you. Dr. Holmes said, the Spirit comes to you with a new and fresh creativity. You need not ask what others have done or how they have done it. Be yourself and express. Be yourself. Now, that's hard to do if you don't like who you are. So the first step has to be coming to recognize that who I am is exactly perfect, just the way it was designed. I'm the only version of me that's ever been in this universe. So how could I be faulty? I'm the only one. There's nothing to compare me to. And so are you. There isn't a better you out there somewhere. The better you, if it exists, exists within you. And by the way, it's trying to get out. It's rattling the cup on the cell you've locked it in, saying, "Warden, let me out." We have to let ourselves out of the prison that we've built for ourselves by listening to those who didn't know any better. And you know what? You've had the key to your cell in your pocket your entire life. And you can open it at any age. You don't have to run the cup on the bars to get the warden's attention. There isn't a warden. You put yourself in the cell, you lock the door, you put the key in your pocket. There's no other players in your play. You're the whole cast. When we come to realize that, after we get over beating ourselves up for being so stupid, let's reach in the pocket, open the key, take the key and open the door. The world is waiting for you to do that. The world is crying out for all of us to do that. The world got itself in a fix because so many, and by that I'm just talking about humanity. The rest of the universe, rest of the world's fine. But we've gotten ourselves in a fix, and the only way we're going to get out of it is to move forward to what we can potentially be rather than trying to fix what we screwed up at the level we screwed it up. And you might be saying, I didn't do anything to screw it up. Yes, you did. If you've ever bought a manufactured good, you have contributed to the decline of the planet. So there. What's next? So we can begin again at any point. We have to realize that we have everything we need to move forward. We don't have to wait for anything else to show up. The only thing we have to heal is our refusal to know the truth. And not the factual truth. The factual truth is malleable. It can be changed. I'm talking about the inner truth with a capital T, that you are who you are. You have enough within you right now to generate the life of your dreams. And I'm getting tired of asking you to do it. But that's my adventure. Of course, if you all did it, I don't know what the hell I'd talk about. But that's me. So let's know the truth together. Let's just know that right here and right now, it's first down. We have a new set of downs every moment. And we're not confined by what we did on the last play or the play before that or that time we fumbled. It doesn't matter. When you're at 1st and 10, it's brand new no matter what has come before. But you have to make a clear decision to say yes to the new opportunity. Only you can do that. I can't do that for you. Only you can do that. And it ties into the little visualization we did about what are you ready to be in ownership of in your life? What are you ready to engage in a bigger way? What is being called forth from within you by the circumstances of your life? And as you answer that call, the circumstances shift to something greater and something greater and something greater. That's what it's about. 1st and 10, it's all in your hands. Thank you, and namaste. Oh, how did that get up there? That's totally inappropriate.